Welcome to the GameRamble video review for The Witch's Love Diary, narrated by me, Dark Cloud. As always, the full text version of this review can be found on the GameRamble website linked below. Also, please keep in mind that this review was originally published in 2019. The TLDR is that The Witch's Love Diary is a unique visual novel with plenty of stories and a unique way of telling them. It offers quite a lengthy tale, and the pace is somewhat on the slow side, but it's definitely worth the read. It also doesn't skimp on roots for any of its characters, even the minor ones. Add to that beautiful visuals, along with a great soundtrack, and you have yourself a visual novel that's worth investing some time in. Gameplay receives an 8 out of 10. The game does not feature many meaningful choices, but the story manages to remain captivating until the end. Graphics receives a 9 out of 10. The visuals consist of beautiful character designs and detailed backgrounds. Sound receives an 8 out of 10. The game features a great soundtrack and top-notch voice acting. The overall score for The Witch's Love Diary is 8.3 out of 10. And now for the full review. The Witch's Love Diary is a visual novel that introduces readers to Alice Nano. Alice is a seemingly ordinary girl living with her pet dog Koo in a worn-down barbershop on the edge of Rose Village shopping district. She spends her days as a student at the Ikeo Academy while working part-time at Dragonburger as a waitress. Her life is pretty busy, but relatively uneventful, until one day when her two best friends convince her to journey into the forest with them. The forest is located on the Academy grounds, and is home to a mysterious clock tower that is said to be able to grant wishes. Alice tags along, and although the trio become lost, they eventually reach the clock tower. Here, Alice finds a strange diary that appears to chronicle the life of a young man named Takumi. As Alice begins reading the diary, she's drawn further into the strange story of Takumi. The best way to describe The Witch's Love Diary is to say that it's a visual novel about stories. It's the story of Alice, who is reading the story of Takumi, while also uncovering new stories about the people in the stories. This might sound confusing, and to be honest, it initially is, but the more you read, the more pieces start to fall into place. The Witch's Love Diary features quite a large cast of characters, and the game actually has roots for each of the main girls, as well as sub-character roots for minor characters. Virtually all of these individual stories could practically have been a small visual novel on their own, so reading through everything will take at least in the region of 30 to 50 hours. Even then, the story is not over, as there's still one more tale left to be told, but we will leave that up to players to discover. What makes The Witch's Love Diary so compelling is that the characters Alice reads about in the diary are all actual people who she knows in her daily life. Everyone from Rei Tokezaka, the principal of Ikeo Academy, and her twin sister Kanon, to Konran Fujita, Alice's classmate and member of the occult club. Then there's Mika Shibabara, Alice's fellow photography club member with her secret dreams of becoming an idol, and the Jirisu, the strange girl who lives as a nun in the church that can be found on the academy grounds. Even one of Alice's teachers, Akumi Kuzu, makes an appearance in the diary. However, while the diary describes the interactions between these girls and Takumi in intimate detail, none of them appear to have any recollection of these events ever happening when Alice finally works up the courage to ask them. Then, just when she thinks things couldn't possibly get any stranger, Alice discovers stories about herself in the diary. To say that the story manages to remain intriguing despite its length would be an understatement. This is in stark contrast to shorter visual novels such as Sakura Beach. Another element of The Witch's Love Diary that we really liked is the fact that it knows how to flesh out its characters. Initially, we thought Takumi was a complete jerk who only lived for one-night stands and seduced every girl in sight, but there's definitely more to him than that. Even deep into the story, it still managed to find ways to surprise us and cause us to reevaluate how we viewed certain characters. Unfortunately, the story's length also means a lot of repetition is involved, and some parts are incredibly confusing until you discover later on what they really meant. Still, overall this is a really solid title. It's also worth sticking with it right to the end and beyond to discover all of its secrets. The version of The Witch's Love Diary released on Steam has been censored to make it suitable for all ages, but the good news is that a free patch is available on Denpasoft. Considering the amount of adult content that this patch adds to the game, it could easily have been sold separately, so kudos to Sekai Project for opting to go this route. Bear in mind that even with the adult patch, there's still some mosaic censorship for anything below the waist. The game is perfectly playable without the patch, but it can be confusing, as you might be left having to guess whether or not characters ended up having sex or not. Speaking of the sex scenes, they are rather numerous, but most of them are pretty vanilla, so don't expect anything too kinky. As with most adult visual novels, some of these scenes can be a little cringy, but there are also a few decent ones that really add to the story. The game features a gallery mode with 6 pages of CG, as well as multiple pages of memories for the adult scenes, which should be a good indication of just how many of these there are. The Witch's Love Diary is pretty much a kinetic novel, as during your first playthrough there aren't really any options that can alter things in any meaningful way. However, the game does provide users with a map system, which allows them to choose which story to read next. The order in which you read the stories can make things a little clearer or more confusing, but in the end it all makes sense. Praise definitely has to go to the translation work on the game, as everything feels polished and natural for the most part. The game has a magical atmosphere, where it feels like anything is possible, and more mysteries are waiting just around the next corner, making it addictive to read. In terms of visuals and audio, there's nothing that we can fault about The Witch's Love Diary. The artwork is simply beautiful, and we love the character designs. In addition to the great CGs, the game features sprites for all the characters, including the male protagonist, which is unusual. There are not a lot of backgrounds, but the available ones are all exceptionally detailed. The game doesn't feature a lot of animations for the characters either, but makes use of other effects to make some of the scenes feel less static. The soundtrack for The Witch's Love Diary is relatively calm and laid back, which fits the mysterious nature of the story perfectly. The soundtrack also features more than 30 songs, which is good considering the game's length. In addition, it has opening and ending songs with vocals. The game's voice acting is in Japanese, but the quality is definitely high. The actresses sound like they've poured their hearts and souls into their characters and don't hold anything back, even during the adult scenes. Playing through The Witch's Love Diary requires a lot of reading, so it's great to see that there are many options to customize the text. In addition to playing the game in full screen or window mode, players can also adjust different font options. From selecting the type of font to enabling things like outline, shadows, gradients, subpixel rendering and justification, there are enough options to cater to everyone. The same goes for the audio settings, which allow you to adjust the individual levels for everything from the background music to the sound effects and voices. The Witch's Love Diary also provides players with a generous amount of save slots, so we never had to resort to overwriting any previous saves. Because The Witch's Love Diary has such a slow pace, it will probably not be a visual novel that appeals to everyone, especially those who crave action or excitement. However, due to the intriguing cast of characters and unique way of telling its story, we highly recommend it to fans of the genre. The light-hearted and edgy elements can sometimes feel at odds with the serious undertones of the story, but do keep things interesting. Some parts of the story feel weaker than the rest, but overall, we thoroughly enjoyed our time with The Witch's Love Diary. Thanks for joining me for this The Witch's Love Diary PC review. Remember to like, subscribe and share. Until next time.